If you had a chance to go to the future, what year would you want to visit? In 1924, George Papachazis, a renowned Greek law professor, received a very securely packaged parcel. It had the sender's name on it, Paul Amadeus Dienach. George thought it must be a book his teacher was recommending to him. But since he was incredibly busy lately, he decided to leave the parcel and planned to open it when he had more free time. A few days later, George received tragic news. His beloved teacher had passed away. Deeply saddened, he attended the teacher's funeral. Likely due to being preoccupied, George completely forgot about the parcel after the funeral. It wasn't until 2 years later that he finally remembered it. One weekend afternoon, he opened it carefully and was astonished to find it documented events from the future. Somehow, his old professor had time-traveled to the year 3906 and lived there for a whole year before returning. In 1972, when George became the president of the Council of State in Greece, despite objections from friends and family, he insisted on publishing his teacher's notes about the journey to the future. This caused a great sensation in Greece. In an interview, George reiterated his belief that his teacher had indeed traveled to the future. So what exactly did this book document that made George believe it wholeheartedly? Today, let's discuss Paul's prophecies. In 1917, Paul Amadeus Dienach, a German teacher in Zurich, suddenly fell ill with a very strange sickness. People with this condition would randomly fall into a deep sleep that could last for days. To try and cure Paul, his family took him to practically every renowned doctor in Zurich, but none could provide substantive help. Over time, Paul's condition only worsened. One early morning in 1921, Paul's illness relapsed and he slipped into another endless slumber. However, this time, when he finally woke up, his eyes struggled to open from the bright light after being asleep for so long. "It's so bright, he murmured groggily, hearing indistinct voices around him that he couldn't understand. "Where am I? Where's my family?" he asked, but received no reply. Unable to communicate due to the language barrier, the people nearby gestured for him to wait patiently while his vision slowly returned over the next half day. As Paul's eyesight cleared, he realized he seemed to be in some kind of hospital, though a rather strange one, decorated with crystal ornaments hanging from the walls and ceiling. "Wait, how can they be floating?" he wondered, doubting his eyes. Looking in a small mirror next to his bed, Paul was horrified to see an unrecognizable face staring back. His features had somehow changed. Paul became hysterically panicked, screaming for his family despite the unknown voices trying to calm him. Finally, he heard a familiar language. "I know you are very scared right now, but trust me, everything will be all right." It took some time, but the mysterious person's reassurances eventually calmed Paul down. He noticed soothing music playing that helped put him at ease, making him wonder if he was on some sedative drug. "Don't worry, we didn't give you any sedatives," the stranger said. "We don't use those anymore. They're harmful to health. Let me explain what has happened. The time we are in now is the year 3906. Due to an accident, you were brought here to this rehabilitation facility. Whenever someone is unwell, they come here for aid. During the time you were unconscious, your consciousness drifted and became linked to the person you see before you. We call it consciousness drifting. We haven't fully grasped this technique yet, but such phenomena are quite common in our era. Sometimes this drifting state can last for days or even an entire lifetime. It's impossible to predict precisely." At this point, Paul noticed something very strange. While the words the person spoke sounded unbelievable, he felt an inexplicable urge to trust them. His doubts faded as curiosity about this world of 3906 took over. The mysterious person told Paul that between the years 2000 to 2300, the world would become increasingly chaotic. With industrial technological advancement, humans would continually release emissions, severely damaging the environment. Under the greenhouse effect, the polar ice caps began melting, flooding coastal cities. Combined with overpopulation, this led to uneven food distribution and a vicious cycle of conflict. Local wars broke out as the global economy teetered on collapse. Fortunately, amidst this chaos, an important figure emerged. He discovered a latent spiritual energy within the human body called Edor physics. Devoting himself to researching this field, he eventually won the Nobel Prize in Physics. His work confirmed the existence of an Edor perception that allowed some people to perceive this spiritual energy flowing in and out of the world, likely referring to reincarnation. Humans began valuing inner development and recognizing that all life is equal. Meat consumption stopped as it came to be seen as a savage act. By 2100, economic priorities shifted after a global conference replaced real money with the concept of time itself as currency. The wealthier had more time and thus longer lives, much like the movie In Time. By 2204, over 20 million people had migrated to Mars. However, a terrible natural disaster in 2265 forced abandonment of the Mars colonization plan. Even worse was the long simmering crisis unfolding on Earth itself. In 2309, the dreaded Third World War finally broke out with nearly every nation involved. The ensuing devastation caused the collapse of modern civilization as we knew it. The world was set back to square one. Those who survived the destruction struggled amidst the rubble, but the fortunate learned to help one another. Some groups banded together, determined to rebuild from the ashes. By 2396, a world government was established, though nations still existed under its unified leadership. National leaders became local officials serving the people. The world government's head was elected not by the elite, but by humanitarians, engineers, and scientists. Private property was virtually eliminated as all resources were evenly distributed. During this era, contact was frequently made with extraterrestrial civilizations. Humans learned of their existence and, with alien assistance, began mastering how to transport themselves via spiritual energy. The aliens helped introduce psychic skills and supernatural concepts. Humanity finally understood that physical laws as we knew them were merely a subset of higher metaphysical laws governing the cosmos. Through frequent contact with aliens, humanity gained new insights about Earth and the answers to long-standing mysteries, including realms within the planet itself. It turned out an inner world truly existed inside Earth's core, containing a tiny sun and highly advanced ancient civilizations. With their approval, surface humans began constructing underground cities. Medical breakthroughs also emerged. Traditional drug treatments were abandoned for using vibrational frequencies to heal the body and mind. Scientists discovered sounds, colors, and lights had potent therapeutic effects on human ailments. Living over 100 years was no longer just for the wealthy. The average lifespan increased remarkably, with living several centuries becoming commonplace. In 3382, another milestone, the mysterious regions of the human brain governing psychic abilities fully awoke. People developed super perception and intuition, able to receive great spiritual light and tap into a creative knowledge energy. Nations stopped competing as the world government leadership included not just scientists, but creative artists too. Outdated spaceships were replaced by field gates, portals linking the physical and spiritual worlds. People could instantly teleport by sitting in a chamber that used non-physical vibrations to shift locations. Paul lived this way in 3906 for a full year, witnessing an unimaginable society. Humans only needed to work for 2 years, spending the rest of their long lives pridefully helping others and being esteemed for it. Over time, Paul felt living in 3906 would be a pretty good choice. Now let's go back to 1922, when Paul had been comatose for a year. Just as his family was losing hope, the miracle happened. Paul awoke from his deep slumber. His overjoyed relatives rushed to embrace him, but Paul couldn't make sense of the scene before him. He wondered if it had all just been an elaborate dream. Paul tried to forget the dream, but over time became convinced his memories were much too vivid to be mere fantasy. He felt exhilarated that few ever get the chance to experience the future firsthand, yet he knew no one would believe his story. By late 1922, using poor health as an excuse, Paul left Zurich for Greece. There, he took a German teaching job and befriended a pupil named George, who quickly became his proudest student. Still, Paul didn't share his time-traveling experience, though never speaking of it. Whenever free, Paul wrote down every detail he could recall from the year spent in the future. In 1924, Paul's fragile health worsened as he contracted tuberculosis. In his final days, he had someone mail a parcel, giving the world its first glimpse into the future chronicle. Today, opinions clash over Paul's book, Chronicles from the Future. Some dismiss it as mere science fiction, potentially penned by Paul or George themselves. Others note correctly predicting future issues like the greenhouse effect causing polar ice cap melting and sea level rise seems beyond the imagination of a 1920s individual. So some believe Paul literally did travel to the future consciousness. If consciousness can drift across time, can we ever be certain we'll wake up in the same reality tomorrow? That's where we'll end this video. If you found it interesting, share it with a friend. Goodbye for now.